Now, in this section, we're going to do a little bit of animation. We're going to do a little bit of extra animation. And so I'm going to make a little bit of a revision to our file, and I'll have a new file name for us. And so let me save our file. Let me save a Houdini file as modeling. I'm going to call it anim, and I'll call it 01. And so it'll be a separate file because I'm going to modify this guy. So now we did our modeling in this guy, and so I'm going to copy this, copy, paste, and then I'm going to call it tin can anim. And I'm going to call, I'm going to make a new geo file. And I'm going to call this one, oh, and I don't want it parented. How did that happen? Y slice geo can anim. Is that, they have the same name? Tin can anim. Anim. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same trick. So I'm going to copy this object merge, and I'm going to go into the anim and object merge. And so that brings in the same can. Now, ideally in Houdini, we cache out whenever we need to. So I'm going to get a drop geo output. And I don't use the cache node, and I'll explain why later, but I'm going to call this geo tin can. Okay. And I'm going to just save out one file, so current frame, and I don't need a frame padded number, so I'm going to go down here and delete that. Don't need that. So it's still going to make its own directory, and it's going to make a BGEO file. The Houdini BGEO.se is a compressed Houdini special file format. And so if I go save to disk, then it wrote it to disk. And I'm going to get a file node and read that in. And I'm going to call it file. So that's my convention, and I read it in, so pull it off of disk. And I want to make sure that I'm looking at hide other objects. And I'm going to pull this in, geo. And if I go to hip, geo, and tin can, there it is. And it should be just one file, there's no frame number, except brought in the can. Okay, so caching out a file is a good idea. And the reason why in Houdini is that we have to be careful, because Houdini can think through all this stuff every frame or more times than we want it to. And so we don't want to have it thinking about anything more than we want it to. So if I know that my can is complete, then might as well just read the still one off of disk, and then I don't have to worry about any other upstream arrows. So we're going to do a really simple animation on this. I'm going to keep my camera move that I have there, and then I'm going to, let's do a bend. Bend. Okay. And the bend node will bend the geometry as you might think. And so if I go in and pick the angle right away, params are locked. Okay, so Oh, good. My safety trick worked. Good. Um, so it's bending part of the object. So I want to go down here and set my. This is a little bit ugly at first. So in any of these deformations, so we're happen to be looking at the bend, but it has this starting point. So the up vector is. Let's go to wireframe node. Okay. The up vector is looking up, so the bending is going to happen on the what, and I could pick set capture origin space, and sometimes it works to set the positions, and so like this and this whatever, and so it deformed it all crazy. So let me undo that. It's actually pretty easy to do by hand. So the capture origin is going to be 0, 0, 0. So my can is right at the origin. That's the crossroads of 0, 0, 0, sitting on the table. And I want the capture direction, I want it to be up. So you can see it already bent it. So there we go. We got a bending going on. Let's see. My capture length is the length of the object. And so you can see that the bend is going up way high because it's high. And remember, my object is small. So if I go to my null, the height is, if I go to up here, I have center, minimum. So y, x, y, z, y is the bottom is 0, top is 0.011. Basically, that needs to be rounded up. And that we got that earlier, right? So I can set my bend top to be like 0.012 or 11. So close that. So I'm going to go to my bend and set my capture length to, there we go, 0.12. So that's my height. Hit space. If you can see, I got the green on there of that. But I have a problem with my geometry bending, because when I modeled my geometry, I didn't give enough detail around the center. So let me check out my groups. And so I still have group information that got saved with that. And so I got my metal group and I got my label group. So let me, I'm going to add a divide. Okay, and if I put the divide on there, now this is another one where I have a preset that divide. Okay, so I uncheck convex polygons, and I check this bricker, and I set the bricker to 2. So that's my default setting for the divide. And the divide will kind of chop up the geometry into smaller parts. And this is the one I use the most. And sometimes I'll use bricker, then I'll use convex. So then I'll have a convex afterwards, and I'll uncheck that and then check that. So I can show you that. So now I got my divide, and it's set to 2 meters. So the spacing between everything is 2 meters. And remember, my object is really small. So if I go 0.05, and I can middle mouse click, hold down on the middle mouse button, go down to the 0.01, and pick a smaller number, or even 0.001, and drag. And that chops the geometry into smaller bits. And let me call this one divide bricker. And let me get that other divide. And after that, I'm going to do divide convex. And then I'll uncheck the bricker and check that. And then that basically triangulated each one of those little polygons. Or did it? Convex. Don't triangulate, not movie. Triangulate non-planar. And it did look like it did it. why? Oh, there we go. Maximum edges. Okay, so now when I run my bend through that, I get a nicer bend. Okay. That was the whole point of that. So now I can do this. So I got this bend, and let's say we want to twist it. So I'm going to get a twist, or I can actually get another bend. Copy paste that one. I'm going to do that first. I'm going to call this twist. And the bend in the twist node, if I click tab, it gives me basically the same thing, except for bend is not checked and twist is checked. So I can twist it. And because I wanted these numbers down here to be the same, that's why I did the copy paste. If I hit tab, twist, it gives me twist instead of bend. But other than that, everything's identical. So it's like a super preset. So now I got a twist, twisting before the bend. Okay, so let's set this to 0. And I got my animation 100 frames. And so let me start off with the bending. We'll do the bending. And I'll pick no bend. And I'll put a keyframe. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key, click. I'm going to go to the very end, frame 1000, Alt click, click. And this is set to green because I have my auto defined on. And also in my preset, I set, so if you followed my presets, this will look correctly. So now I'm going to pick a frame and I'm going to go, let's say go to 30. Well, I'm going to show you a trick. So if I hit this V key, it shows you my timeline. Now I'm going to go to frame 1001 and add a keyframe. So Alt click. And I'm going to go to the second to last frame, go back one frame, Alt click. And then if I select that, hit the V key, you can see I get a frame, 2 frames at the beginning and 2 frames at the end that are identical, and it's 0. Because I'm going to use a spline interpolation. And this is when I first started doing 3D back in 1986. We could do constant, which is like jumping from one setting to another, linear, or spline. And we didn't have a graph editor, so we're doing the curve kind of blindfolded. That was way back when. So now, let me close that window. So now I'm going to do some bending. So I'm going to come up here, let's say about 1/3 of the way through. I'll click and do my bend like that. And then I'll go to the other way here, and I'll click and do the opposite. Okay, and I got that. So that's my simple animation. Now, because I set my animation, select that, hit the B key, space G. Because I did linear as my default, I'm going to select everything, and then I'm going to change this to spline. And it automatically does the curving. Now, because I have 2 frames at the beginning that are identical and 2 frames at the end that are identical, it does that ease in, ease out kind of effect. And I did animation like this for a couple of years where this is all I could do, and it was blindfolded. So anyway, I got this going on now. So I got that. Whoa. Okay, then it goes back to home. So now that animation, I'm going to copy that to the twist. So I can here copy parameter, go to twist, and I'm going to go to the twist. I'm going to pick paste expressions channel. Okay, and then it will twist. You see how it's now it's twisting. So if I turn the twist off, so look, it's like looking at the sun or something. Oh, now the good part about this, I could have picked paste relative reference, and that would have given me the exact same thing. But if I do this, then I can hit the V key, O-V. Where'd my... It's hiding down here. There we go. So I can go in and change it to be more or change it to be less. And I come over here to this frame, more or less, and then whatever. And so, and then I can even take the vertical bar and slide the time. So now they're not perfectly identical. So paste, copy, and expression allows me to basically get the same keyframes, and then I can go in there and tweak them. Whereas paste relative reference will give me exactly what the other one is. Okay, so now I got simple animation on there. Wow, that's cool. And do I want to have any more kind of animation on there? So I don't need that null anymore. So I'm gonna call this out anim. Okay, and let's say we wanted to have it set tippy toe. So when it goes like that, it's going to lean back on that side. So it's getting more complicated than we want it to be. So we'll leave it at that. I could go on with this forever. And we have a better part to talk about that. But so now I have a simple animation, and I want to do a flip book. So I'll go to my camera, and let me go top level. And so this is my can anim, but that guy's looking at the wrong one. You can see with my arrow, remember view, show file nodes. Click on here, and then I want to make sure I pick my null on my cam anim. So open that anim out. If I go up, and if I turn that off, then I should see the animation there. Whoa. Okay. And can you say final? Okay, so that's a trick. Okay, so now flipbook, and I could turn on my shelf phantom. Oh, that's like so bright. This is getting so much light. So anyway, let me just do a flipbook of this. So I got my right click on the word phantom, start end frame, and so I'm going to set a kind of a default for this guy, and I put these into a new folder called flip. So it's underneath the Houdini directory. So $, $HIP is the location where the Houdini file is saved. I'm going to make a new folder called flip. I don't have to make it. It's going to make it for me. And then I'm going to type $hip, $hip name / $hip name and $f4.jpg or PNG or PIC, whatever you want. And it's going to just flip book that screen. Current viewport, current visibility, anything check. If I'm doing a simulation with particles or dynamics, I may want to check that on. Leave play bar at the last frame. Okay, that doesn't matter. And so I'm going to hit start, and it should open up a new window, which it did. But it's also saving them to disk. So this flipbook is saved to disk. And the resolution of this is, we can see 1920 by 1080 up there in the top left corner. And so that was one of my options. So flipbook setting, size. So typically with Apprentice, you're going to get 1280 by 760, 780, 1280 by 760. I think that's it. Okay, and then sometimes I do 50%, but they don't usually eat up that much space. And then if I go here, I can pick save as default. and it'll save it as my default. And I've noticed that it doesn't always, like it saves it to the default of this file. So every time I open up this file, I don't have to reset it. It doesn't seem to work with other files, but it's kind of a default. And so now I got my flipbook, and then, okay, so that's, there we go. Playing back again. Now if I make a change, I can flipbook right back over it. And so if I, the one thing that I didn't do when I saved the name is when we wrote images, I didn't put in that $OS thing because there's really no $OS that we're looking at. We're looking at from the viewport, so there's really no $OS to look at. And sometimes if I'm changing one or two, I'll add version 1 or version 2 or subversion 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever into the name of the file or something like that. Like if I want to look at camera 1, camera 2, like I'll put like underscore, underscore camera 1 or something like that. And some of those are called witness cameras. So anyway, that's the simple way of doing an animation and getting a little flipbook out.